So it's Wednesday. It is additional thoughts for most deaths, black on both sides. And I've been sitting here for a minute. I've got my notes open. I've got the playlist open. I've got it. I'm just ready. And I still don't even really know where to begin because I'm kind of starting to realize, or at least come to my own personal conclusion, that I think this is the best album I've heard so far. And that's saying a lot, obviously. And I don't want to say that it's better than some of the other ones that I love, but I think in terms of all the albums that I've heard, I feel like this album has like really just connected to my core in a way that no other album has done. And it's really kind of caught me off guard, so much so that there was a couple comments left in the YouTube sections that I want to touch on because they were good comments and they made me think. And much like all of the rain California's been getting, I'm sure you guys have seen it on the news and stuff, but we're just getting a shit ton of rain. It's raining right now. Like, it's just raining. And the water's everywhere, and it's not soaking in because there's just so much. That's how I felt this week. I actually have a part here in my notes highlighted. It just says 1 week isn't enough because that's how I feel. Like, so one of the comments that was left, I didn't put the name, but anyway, the comment went like this. Basically, it was like, "Yay! I've been waiting for this reaction for a long time. Eager to check it out." And then there was an edit, to basically say after watching the video, "Less enthusiastic than I hoped, but there you go," or something to that effect, right? And I thought to myself, I feel like that's a very fair comment. It's because it's not even like a criticism or it's just a comment, right? And I thought, well, why though? But like, why? Because I did feel just off a bit on Friday doing this one. And I think going into it initially, I was like, man, it's another long album because I've been doing a lot of long albums lately and it just takes a lot of time. I know in my head now, okay, this is going to be like 2.5 hours in the chair. And that's a substantial amount of time. For those of you who are watching on Patreon, you know it's no cuts. I don't take any breaks. I sit down and I do my thing until the end. And so the enthusiasm thing, it kind of struck a chord with me just because when I sit down with these albums, I don't come at it with okay, time to, put on my reaction. I just experience what I experience and that's it. And that's why I feel like I'm more of kind of like an analysis more than a reaction because I feel like I don't necessarily react that much. So why was I not that as enthusiastic? Well, Umi Says, being track 8, right in the middle of the album, especially after all these great tracks coming before it, it was such I want to say gut punch, but it wasn't a gut punch. It was so perfect. It was so much of everything that I needed to hear for a myriad of reasons, right? And then rolling into the back half, that song just kind of stuck with me for a while. And there was just a lot to take in terms of Yassine Bey and this perspective that he holds and these concerns that he has in the world that he sees in front of him, around him. And I just felt like, oh my God, I feel like this guy's talking to me. And I love that, obviously, just because it shows the power of music. But I mean, also just because of the idea of here's a guy from Brooklyn who made this album in 99. And here I am 24 years later hearing it and connecting with it. I mean, fucking connecting with it on a level that's so deep. I don't even realize it's happening the first time I'm hearing it. I can't absorb it all in. So that was one comment. The other comment was somebody said it was a rare miss on my not liking Brooklyn and Habitat, those two tracks. Because I said, I remember during the reaction saying how, this is cool, shout out to Brooklyn and all this other stuff. And I thought about that comment for a while. And I realized this is something I've known, but it's not something that sits in the forefront of my mind is my whole life, all I've done is move. I've moved and I've moved and I've moved and I've moved and I've moved. And when you do that, I remember my wife and we went to Ireland once for vacation. It was fantastic and I loved it. And I kind of had like an existential crisis on like day 3 because we were in this bar that used to be a church that was built in like the 1500s. And I was drinking a beer that had been established 100 years before my country even existed. And I just had this panic of, oh my God, I have no roots. I have no roots. I have no history. I don't know anything about my ancestors. I have no knowledge of my lineage. Like, I just kind of had like this fucking crisis for a second. And it was really an interesting experience. And so when I hear a song like Brooklyn and like Habitat, where he's calling out the places where he's from, what's the, I wrote it down. We've all got to have some place that we call home, the place where we come from, we call home. And I started to think about my own life, my own past, and how there are so many places that used to be where I lived that I'll never go back to. And they are not home. They're just places I've left. And it's kind of strange. And it, I don't want to make it sound like sad or gloomy or depressing or anything like that, but it's a very strong contrast, very strong difference between Mos Def expressing love for where he's from and then my perspective of, I never want to go there again. I don't even want to talk about some of these places. So that really hit and stirred inside of me for a while. And then you've got, what was another great song? Oh, New World Water. Reading the comments, it's literally about water, what corporations are doing with, like, what's going on with water and how strange it is. It was nice to like hear it again and listen to it again, knowing there was no like hidden meaning or anything like that. One thing that throws me off about that track though is that like it makes me think of like a circus, which I kind of think is probably the point, but it throws me off a bit because then I think, is this a joke song? But it's not a joke song, but it sounds like a circus, which is probably the point because we as like a society have made a circus out of something as basic and fundamental as water, But I honestly, I say all these things and then I feel like I don't even know where to begin with this album. I love the hip hop track and all of the like metaphors, comparisons, analogies that he cracks off at the end about what hip hop is. Beautiful song, incredible song. Fear Not of Man. Even that is great. This basically like letter about hip hop and how we're going to save it. Miss Fat Booty's, of course, incredible. Do It How with Busta Rhymes. Speed Law. I really like Speed Law too. But Umi says, by far is my favorite track. And I mean, it like was just a rocket ship. Just like I Know by De La Soul was a rocket ship up the list of my favorite songs. So was Umi Says. And it's just a beautiful song. And there's so many things about it that I love, that, again, to hear somebody who's so different from me in terms of background, life experiences, etc., to hear his concerns and the things that he's worried about and how hard he's trying and just keeping this mantra in his head of, and of course I'm going to forget the line, shine your light on the world, shine your light for the world to see. From his, I guess, was it grandma? I think it was Umi. Umi was grandma. And I kind of pondered on that for a while. I thought about how cool it is that whenever his grandma said that to him, maybe she said it a lot. Maybe she only said it a couple times. Maybe she never even said it to him. Maybe she just lived it and he saw it. Maybe a little bit of both, And how that one little ripple has just spilled out and how incredible that is. This album has just, it's really sunk in. It's really sunk in. And it's crazy because, like I have highlighted right here, 1 week is not enough. I feel like I'm only just starting to understand and appreciate how great this album is. And I think it threw me off a bit when I first listened to it because I've heard other people say, oh, this is the best one. This is one of the best ones ever. And when I hear that, I naturally, immediately compare it to all the other albums I've heard that are great, because there's some great ones out there. And so initially, I think too, one of the reasons why I wasn't necessarily that enthusiastic was because I was like, well, okay. I mean, it's certainly good, but the bar is very, 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 very high. But I think it just takes time for it to sink in. And then also too, just from my personal connection to it, my own like mental alignment to it. I wish I had more to say that was, I guess, to script. I'm looking at my thing and I've been talking for 10 minutes and I feel like I've said nothing. more so in the sense that I feel like I have failed to convey how I feel about the album because I really do love it. And I think this is the best one I've heard. In terms of it connecting with me, like just a personal level, I think this is the best one I've heard. There's other ones that I enjoy more. I think there's other albums that are, you know, technically better. All those other things that you could categorize, right? But for me, I think this is my favorite one. Well, I don't even want to say favorite. Because that's different. That's different. It reaches into my core. It really reaches into my core. This one does. There you go. Here's my additional thoughts with Black on Both Sides. Fantastic. Fantastic album. And I hope, it's been getting harder lately because as I have more albums that I've listened to and exposed to, and I go back and listen, there's just a larger catalog to select from, right? And so it's harder and harder to go back to all these different albums because there's just a lot more to go back to. But I feel like this one is going to be one I revisit fairly often. Kind of like I revisit some of my other favorite albums, like Animals by Pink Floyd, Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains. Just those special albums that for whatever reason, I just fucking love them. Love them. Okay. That'll do. Tomorrow, Thursday night, I'm going to stream on YouTube, 7 p.m. on YouTube. We're going to celebrate 100 albums reacted to by doing a 64 album bracket elimination. We're going to eliminate 64 brackets to find out the final number one. Part of that stream will also be me explaining why the other 36 albums didn't make the cut. That's going to be interesting as well because there's some albums in there that people are going to be furious about that they're not in there. And then Friday is going to be a bit of a milestone. We've got JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown releasing their collaboration album. I am going to live stream my reaction. I'm also going to record it. Okay, so I'm going to live stream what I do while I'm sitting here. I'm going to live stream it on Twitch. Probably going to start around 8:15. I think I'll kick the stream on before 8:15, but I think I'll start the album at like 8:15. I'll record it like I do. I'll upload it to Patreon like I do. I'll do edits and then upload the edited version to YouTube like I do. But I will be live streaming on Twitch Friday morning. Album will start at 8:15. So that'll be a new thing. I'm testing it out. I'm curious. Curious to see how that format's going to work. I think it'll be fun with a new album that nobody's really had time to listen to and digest just yet. I haven't listened to any of the singles. It's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys can join in. And if not, you'll catch the video like they always are available. Unless it gets blocked. Been getting a lot of that lately too. Yeah. Fucking amazing. Amazing album. Amazing album. All right, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.